Hey everybody, welcome to Wealth Building Wednesday. Today's topic is four of us ended up we had the opportunity to attend the KW Wealth workshop in Austin, Texas. For those of you that don't know what KW Wealth is, it is one of the communities within Keller Williams. So just like, sports and entertainment, young professionals, luxury, land, all of those, KW Wealth is specifically geared towards obviously, building wealth, whether it's within real estate or also not within real estate. So really cool opportunity. We got to hear from Mark King, Jason Abrams, Brett Tanner, and Gabby, and I cannot pronounce her last name. So apologies. Do you know how to pronounce her? I don't. Anyhow, so but they were all fantastic. And so that's really what we're bringing back today. Some of the questions and some of the action items and stuff that we brought back from that. At the end, Hannah is also going to deliver to you guys a copy of this really amazing spreadsheet that they gave out. That basically is not even just a spreadsheet, it's more like a checklist about like protecting your assets. And really what it does is it goes over these items right here. So
is it possible for you to take the bar side?
Yep, I'm gonna do it right there. So really these were kind of the elements. So number one is create your passive income goal. Number two is get your partner buy-in, and that can be accountability partner and of course your family. Number three is basically setting what it is your security level, your comfort level, and then what does wealth mean to you. And so these are just some of the examples. So comfort would be 2 times your minimum, and then wealth 10 times your security. And then of course, determining what your why and your purpose is, that drives you, that's your compass. And then developing your board of directors. So that would be your accountant, your tax strategist, which is different than an accountant, which I didn't know, that was one of my laws. And then your attorney, and then the 5 people that influence your thinking. So you can also think of those as kind of a board of directors in addition to your actual professional services. And then the last one is watch your back. So really the spreadsheet or the checklist / spreadsheet kind of guides you through all of these steps. So we're going to have that for you guys, an editable version for all of you guys to have at the end of today. But for now, I'm going to sit back and Hannah is going to take it away. And yeah, we can, I guess, maybe we should probably all introduce ourselves first or something like that. But you guys know who I am, so yeah.
Well, I'm Jay Canady. I'm a sole agent in West Ashland Market Center and also president of KWYP Low Country. Happy to be here.
Bastian, I run a small team in the West Ashley office. I'm a part of KWYP.
Actually, we all are.
Yeah, we all are, which is kind of a little bit of that.
We're special.
I'm Vincent Mariani, team leader of KW Charleston. That's all.
That's enough.
Yeah, and I'm Hannah. I'm Winnie's ops person, just in case you haven't met yet. Like she was saying earlier, I'm going to send everybody out a copy of that spreadsheet. So I'm just going to send you around this piece of paper with this super pretty pen. If you could just put whatever email you prefer for that to go to, it's going to automatically make a copy for you. So you can just automatically type in it, fill it in as you wish. So I'm going to go ahead and send that out now. Thanks. Okay, so my first question for you all, and I am very limited on my knowledge about this. All I know is that Winnie left me for a week, really. So can you please give us your driving motivation for attending KW Wealth in Austin?
Go for it. You're first.
Okay. Mine was definitely, so I'm like fascinated by cash flow creation, and I have this I have a big goal just around the amount of cash flows that I want. I don't want to be dependent on one cash flow. So for me, hearing about different strategies around creating cash flow, where that can come from, whether it's investment properties, other investments, market centers, whatever it is in your particular world, that was a driving force for me. Sure.
That all sounds good too. Yeah,
I just thought of it written.
Yeah, no. I would agree with all that. I mean, like, I've got different forms of cash flow, and I like to expand on that. And I learned a lot. I'm glad I went. The other factor was I wanted to get the hell out of town for a little bit. And I did, and I got business while I was out of town. I think we wrote 2 contracts over there. So yeah, it's great.
I'll kind of second that too. I just want to get out of town, so there's that.
It's fun.
You're the only one I think that didn't. Anyway, yeah, we mentioned that we were all part of KWYP, and it was really awesome because this workshop is provided quarterly for anybody to attend. You don't even have to be with KW to go, but it costs $1,000 to go, just for the ticket. You know, you still gotta pay to get there. But we were fortunate enough to got invited by KWYP because they had some extra ticket for this particular one. And I was like, getting invited to go to Austin for free. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I'll go. So that was my driving motivation. I really had very little knowledge of what we were going to do or take away from it. I've been very interested in the wealth community since it launched. And I've got a couple friends that are really involved in it. I was like, oh, okay, well, this would be a great idea to learn a little more.
Yep.
Plus go to Austin.
Yeah, and then for me, I mean, it definitely is just like learning more like what's out there, you know, because I know a little bit about flipping houses, that's kind of really all I know about in investing. So, and then the other thing is too, I mean, I host Wealth Building Wednesday every single month, and a big reason that I host Wealth Building Wednesday is because I want to learn more things, more ways to make money outside of selling houses, and I think that that's why all of you are here, and that's why I want to continue to bring content. So my main goal was really to create more content to bring to you guys and of course to myself, but also to network with other people that could potentially be guests for Wealth Building Wednesday going forward. So any other topics, you know, like there's people that do things that I don't even know what they're talking about. It's just like fully over my head. So just networking with those people to be able to bring that to you.
So with the mention of flipping houses, I know that's something we are probably very familiar with. What kind of wealth strategies or plans did you have before you left that you were already implementing or considering implementing?
That wasn't all that was the question.
Let's start with rely on you to think on the fly.
Yeah.
So I have flipped a couple houses with my dad, but mainly what I've done is wholesale, and then I do use my profit share income and I reinvest my profit share income because that's something that I'm strong with. But I guess that was like my only strategy that I actually was implementing.
What do you reinvest your profit share income into?
I give it to my financial advisor, and so that's actually my retirement for now. If I don't, you know. For now, that's what that is.
You wanna go? No, you look here and talk.
I have the strategies that I've implemented so far. I do the same thing with my profit share where I invested into just a index fund. And take advantage of compound interest in that regard. And the other thing that I do, I'm invested in a few market centers. So I've played that game as well, and that's part of my wealth building strategy. So that's where a lot of my money is going in the last couple of years.
So I've got a financial advisor that I send money to every once in a while. If y'all haven't heard of a SEP, it's a little bit better than a Roth. You can put up to 25% of your income in each year. I don't quite do that, but I'm sure he'd love to have more of my money.
What was that? What do you call it?
Self-employed is that person?
SEP?
IRA.
Yeah, so I do that with him, and then I've got a TD Ameritrade account that I kind of buy index funds and like with stocks. But mostly it's been investment properties and flipping vehicles.
And your own house. You made quite a bit of money flipping your own house.
Yeah, that's the long flip. Yeah,
House hacking.
yeah, and I can't have the roommates. I have them, they just don't pay rent. But I can't really have roommates. Yes. Yeah. So essentially, you know, we bought a partially burnt house. Completely rebuilt it. It was three,
Partially,
well, it was partially burnt. We dropped it down to 3 exterior walls and 60% of the floor joists. So
all
we
that was
built,
left was the outside walls.
we built it. Yeah, so we built a new house and then, you know, if I had a crystal ball, I would have waited a little bit longer, but, we sold in October of 2020 and did very well, thinking the market was gonna, go down and it did not. So, but the house we bought 2021 and we have about as much equity as we would have had on the other one, so it was a wash.
For me, like the only thing that I've really been doing investment wise is I have a 401k from my corporate America days. And then I do a Roth IRA, but I've just learned about the whole SEP thing and I'm starting to do that. I too don't do 25% because then I'd be broke. But for those who aren't familiar, like a Roth IRA has I think it's like $7,100 cap that you can contribute each year. Whereas the SEP, it's a percentage of your income. So it allows you a lot more, you know, ability to put it into a retirement account.
And along those lines, you also there's a tax benefit for adding to the SEP, so you don't get taxed on that money. It's not like a 1-to-1, but there's a percentage.
Well, and it's also pre-tax because you're paying tax on it as you put it in. So when you take it out, there is no tax.
Under Roth.
Yes, sorry.
All right, so this one was on the list, I promise. What was your biggest takeaway from the event?
I would say just all the different ways that I didn't know about to make money, and then some of the security stuff and talking about how to protect your assets was interesting. It was also kind of boring, but it was interesting just because it was, you know, it was fun and exciting. But I had a couple things here like treasury bills, high saving bonds, high yield savings accounts, stuff like that you're not, and then private hard money lending, which I'm very interested in because I'd love to be able to give people money and make money with doing absolutely nothing besides lending the money and taking the risk. That sounds amazing. So one day, we're not there yet, but I came away with a lot of stuff that I didn't know and didn't even know to ask about, which I think was the biggest takeaway for me.
You know, my biggest takeaway was not any specific item per se, because there was so much. I mean, it was literally information overload. I have been to a lot of AW classes and courses and things over the years, and I've taken more notes at this one than anything ever before. So there was just a lot. The thing that really stuck out with me was when Brett Tanner kind of took the stage. He was kind of like the keynote speaker, if you will, for the event. And he said, "How much time do you have left?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you know, on average, you know, the person lives like 75, 78 years or something like that." And he put it in this whole 90-year continuum. And like, there's this many weeks left. How many weeks do you have left? How many Christmases do you have left?
Oh.
How many swims in the ocean do you have left? And I was like, I'm gonna need to leave.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, I gotta go to the ocean. But that really, I mean,
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
that has really stuck with me, from that, because, you know, there's all these different things we can do. We can get lost on talking about all of it, but you only have a little bit of time left. I mean, like, in all fairness.
He was also talking about like, how many does my dad have?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, how many Christmases are gonna be left with my dad? Like, how many times can I go to a football game with my dad? Like, there aren't that many.
Was the context of that then like, so you need to get on that
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah.
You're like,
And
Okay.
one of the big takeaways too was just, find one thing and start there. Like, don't try to do it all at once, because nobody can do that, you know?
When you get frustrated, you won't do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was my big takeaway.
I had kind of like 3 big, like, my little starred marks that I wrote, so they were, you know, maybe quotes or whatever. So one of them was KW created more millionaires than Microsoft.
Nice.
I'm sorry, but that's cool. I think we're in like the right place. And then one of the other quotes was a Tony Stark quote: "No amount of money ever bought a second of time."
Yeah,
She's taking all my little.
Okay, and then the last one is relationships compound more than money. And I really think, like, if you think about it, then, like, that's what's the most important, is who you are in business with and who you surround yourself with. And it isn't that they will directly make you money, but those relationships can create wealth in whatever way.
Yeah, I'd say all of those were my ahas. All of them. Yeah, I love the way that they broke down, the way to think about money from the standpoint of short term, mid-term, and forever money.
Yeah.
They broke down
That was
short
good.
term in 12 months or less, mid-term 1 to 3 years, and then forever money. And they gave a lot of different strategies around, like, short-term money is hard money, treasury bills. They talked about these I bonds,
Yeah,
and, like, basically, given the environment with inflation right now, these I bonds, there's a lot of tax advantages around them. The return is really good because it's based on the inflation rate. And given how high inflation is, you're not gonna find something that is darn near risk-free for a 7 or 8% return. So investing in these I bills really made sense. High yield savings, and then they talked about the midterms being rentals, stocks, promissory notes, or kind of that or hard money financing, so that, like financing. And then forever money being mobile home parks, storage units, large apartment complexes, things of that nature. So I love that. And then I also loved, they talked about the world is getting in front of you to make you spend money. And that was kind of part of that whole path. Like, I love the path of money, and the path of one creating wealth. But when I started to think about the world getting in front of me to make me spend money, I asked myself, how can I bring some sort of valuable product to other individuals based on their gap, so that I can make money and others with me that are partnered with me make money. So I kind of took what they were talking about and spun it in my own head, and that was a huge aha for me as well.
So following that, what was one mindset shift or preconceived concept that was challenged for you in that event?
For me, that's easy. When I started to build out the net worth plan of 50 million, so one of the prerequisites was go and build out your net worth to 50 million.
At least
And-
50 million.
Yeah, at least 50 million. And when I started to think about, like, I had big goals. I never thought though to 50 million. And when I started to build this plan to 50 million, by year 5, I was at 7.8 million. And it was super interesting how simple it was. Like, the compound interest that takes hold when you're really intentional and purposeful about the way in which I'm going to do something. It actually took 50 million and made it really small, and made 100 million much more feasible.
Do you recall how long it would take you to make 50 million based on your plan?
Yeah, 38 years. It was awesome. We could share that sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can share that sheet.
So there was like a worksheet.
Yeah.
Plan.
You had to do this worksheet that said, like, what are you gonna do to have a net worth of $50 million and.
And it gives you an
plan it out.
example version.
Cool.
And obviously, a lot of the focus is on real estate, because that's what we do, and that's an easy way to make wealth and money and all that. But you can do any of these things that we've talked about in there as well.
Cool.
I
yeah,
think,
good. No, go ahead.
well, one of my mindset things was I really enjoyed hearing from Mark King, because Mark King grew up more modest. And so one of the mindsets that he has is that, and if you grew up in that lifestyle, which I did, is that you're scared to spend money sometimes. And so, but what he does spend money on, for instance, is cars. So it's almost like, what he does spend money on, it can be like a little bit flashy. It might seem frivolous, but it is what it is. But for me, part of what he said and helped with my mindset, one, like, I need to know that other people feel the same way as me. So I'm scared of, like, spending money. So for me, like, seeing these T-bills and stuff, I was like, oh, that's like low risk, short term. It's not going to hold up a lot of my money. So I feel like a little bit more like I can dip my toe into something else that maybe I'm unfamiliar with and it's not too risky. So that made me feel good. And then he also talked about a couple of books that he read that it related to, like this, one of them is The Psychology of Money. One is The Millionaire Next Door, and one is Stop Acting Rich. So those were 3 books that I'd like to read. I've heard a lot about Millionaire Next Door. And so, like I said, just going into like the psychology of money and what that means for all of us. Everybody has a different view of that.
Yeah, and so, being challenged, aside from the how much time do we have left? I'm a big fan of Dave Ramsey. I understand that there are a lot of not fans of his, and that's cool.
To get out of debt is great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's where I would reiterate that too. Like, if you are somebody who grew up, poor or in locally, like whatever, and you've got a lot of debt, Dave Ramsey is incredible for living within your means and getting yourself out of debt. From there, you probably need to advance to a different philosophy. And so that was one of the things that really challenged me a little bit, because everything that I've built over the last several years has been kind of around the whole Dave Ramsey, plan. I was like, oh, I mean, he's great, and there's more, and so that was one of the things that really, stuck with me, is that there's more than just one way or one person. And I need to branch out a little and do a little more research. It kind of blew my mind. We were talking about mobile home parks as one of the long-term things. You can make hundreds of thousands of dollars owning trailers. That just, well, sure, but putting the trailers on the dirt. But also, like, and one of the things that I've seen around here too that works really well, if you can find the dirt for it, is mobile home, or not mobile home, boat and RV storage. Like, people pay a ton of money for that. All you need is a piece of grass with a fence.
Well, in the right zoning.
Sure.
Minor
But
Minor detail.
details.
Had some clients doing that and they are no longer doing that. Unfortunately.
But anyway, I just thought that was fascinating. Like, there's so many different things and ways to do it that never even occurred to me. And like, both of those things, like owning a mobile home park, that's not a very big investment. It's the dirt and maybe some plumbing, electrical hookups. That's it. Like, you don't have to go into this with $500,000 just to get started. You can start really small.
Yeah, I think that the life chart that y'all were talking about earlier, that was a big mind shift for me, and how I looked at the time I have left, with not just for myself, but like with my family, with my parents, with my kids. So that was interesting, and kind of hit me in the face pretty hard. And then on top of that, I don't want to be doing what I'm doing now when I'm 50. So how do I get out of the role I'm in and put myself in the place? And a lot of the strategies that they came up with, or we're talking about, really good. And just basically other way. I mean, like, I think I'm pretty, if you know me, you'll know that, like, I'm going to try to find $1 any way I can. I mean, I've had 44 vehicles now. So, and I've made money on all but like 2. And that's just a hobby. So, like, I'm always looking for the next thing that I can invest in or whatever, and try to do less work versus more. And they just gave a lot of great ideas around that. So it was good.
I'll make a point to what Jay was saying was, and I wrote it down, is you should read and study others who understand you read and study others to understand what strategy works for you. So we talked about Dave Ramsey. I'm not going to learn from Dave Ramsey how to go and leverage. I'm going to learn from Robert Kiyosaki about leverage. So, but I'm going to learn from Dave Ramsey about how to get out of debt, or I'm going to learn from Tony Robbins about mindset. So who's the expert, and what's my intention, and what's my plan, and then who's the expert that's already doing it? Learn from them, and then go find other experts in that space. I like that.
I also thought, this is kind of on the same topic of what we've been talking about. There is no correlation between income and wealth. And that is, I think, one of the biggest misconceptions, is that in order to be wealthy, you have to earn a lot of money. And sure, earning a lot of money makes it a little easier. But it's not a requirement. In fact, most people who are high dollar earners are not wealthy. And that's a really important distinction to understand.
Then
You know,
there's my uncle that has like a Prius and he's like a multi-millionaire and you never know.
I love those people.
yeah. You know, but that's the thing that also was like, okay, so you don't have to make $1 million in like earnings in order to be wealthy. You can actually do it other ways. And I think the biggest thing that comes with that is understanding that in order to really get there, you've got to have passive income. Your income isn't necessarily going to get you there. Even if it is a high dollar amount, you've got to figure out ways to make money without doing something.
In the Psychology of Money, that book that Winnie mentioned, there's a story about a guy who was on Wall Street. He was one of the best traders there was on Wall Street. He lost everything. And at the same time, there was a guy that was a janitor at a gas station and a school. And nobody had any idea when he passed away. He had something like $7.5 million. Like a large percentage of it go into a library. In a trust or go into some sort of awesome cause, and then his family also getting some money. But it was in line with what Jay just said. Like, income has absolutely no correlation to wealth. What has correlation to wealth is habits and knowledge.
Trad, I'm gonna want you out here.
Oh, thanks.
But everybody else is gonna follow you really quickly. Can you elaborate just a little bit on, you have kids, so how have your children shifted your mindset in wealth, and what is it specifically that you want for them with your goals?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The biggest thing for me with them is giving them the knowledge that I didn't have growing up about, you know, even just how to use credit cards properly and what that means for your credit, how you can, you know, utilize different things and different strategies to build that up faster. And also teaching them just the work ethic, right? I mean, hey, listen, it's not gonna just come to you. Maybe you're gonna be great on TikTok or YouTube, but probably not. So let's get you into the real deal. And I've already started, they're still too young, they're 4 and 5 right now, so they're getting close, but like I'm already starting to think about like going to garage sales and having them buy toys that they like and then selling them on Facebook Marketplace, that kind of thing, to get them in that mindset of making money, and then they spend their own money, so they spend it less than mine.
Like,
Yes.
if they're bad as a punishment.
If they're bad as a punishment, they pay me.
And
you just take it.
some toys to buy.
I give $1 for the whole thing.
Got a whole bit of Disney VHS films as well. Like those.
$15.
Film. Oh,
No.
deal.
And then the other aspect of it is just from my time with them, and it's business has been great. I'm not complaining about that, but my time is sucked out of my family. So love my wife, and she's very supportive, but I can tell she gets frustrated with me certain times when we have plans and then I gotta go show a house. So just figuring out a way to get the business to work for me so that I can then be home, but still be making enough money to provide for my family. So which I kind of was already thinking about before this, but it drove it home even more so with that life chart. I was just like, oh shit, they're gonna be in college in 18 and they're not gonna do anything with me until they're 24. So I only have like 13 summers left, you know? So it's it put it in perspective, and it was kind of a slap in the face.
Yeah, but you've got girls, right?
Yeah, I got girls.
A little bit less than 13.
They're
Basically, when they turn 13, they won't like you anymore.
They're driving that 350.
Small Lauren's face, and she literally.
So how are you taking what you learned to adapt your business from your new knowledge?
Sorry, Mason.
Everybody, no, I'm gonna let you on the hook now.
Thank you, ma'am.
You know, I don't know if I specifically got this from this class or just kind of the conversation that I've been having since. You know, but I've been a huge proponent, especially this year with taking over my dad's finances, like of just having a budget and knowing where your money is going.
How'd that go? Cause I still don't have.
You know, I mean, I have a really pretty spreadsheet I can share.
Yeah,
Um,
that's half the battle, just getting it
yeah,
built out.
and it really is. And, you know, it's one of the things too, that on the business side of things, I haven't been as intentional about that. And so that's been something that I've worked towards, is having a budget for my business. Like, what am I actually spending in my business? Like I've always been aware of it, but I haven't planned it, you know what I mean? Like I've kept track of it, but I haven't planned, and there's a big difference between the two, you know? And so that's one of the things that I've been really intentional about over the last couple of weeks since we did this. And like I said, I'm not sure that it was directly from the course or not, because we talked about using your personal and obviously business income towards this, and I think that's part of why it kind of got into my head. But that's been something that I've really been intentional about last few weeks.
One thing that I did was right when we got back, a couple of the Y peers also joined like a challenge called Win, Make, Give. It's it's done by like Ben Kenny and his team. So, and because I need accountability, so I'm on like an accountability call every week now too. And one of the activities that we had to do, and I thought this was just a great idea, so I'm gonna share it, is like print out, you know, your last like month or two of statements, and everything that you have to pay for, highlight that in green, and everything that is optional, highlight that in pink. Because the average American spends $1,024 a month more than we think we do. $1,000 whole dollars just fully unaccountable.
All on Amazon.
It's all on Amazon. I know, I know.
We're on Coca-Cola's at the gas station, you know, or
Similar activity, and it was so much on Amazon that I was like, why does Amazon not have a way where it like gives me a pie chart
Yeah,
of what my money goes to? I have no idea, it's just everything. Yeah, everything.
Yeah,
is
I'll
on
remember.
there.
So that was one thing, and then one of the other things that you'll see, and that my coach has been talking about in terms of like, you know, things that I've like shifted, is like trying to understand, like, I contacted my insurance broker about an umbrella policy, which didn't necessarily know that should need that, but then it was kind of funny because I was talking to my coach and he was like, do you have an umbrella policy? And I was like, oh, yeah, no, but somebody else told me that I should do that, so the universe is telling me I need to do that. So like, but that's, once again, that's checklist that we're gonna give you at the end. We'll have all of these things that you just don't even think that you need, and you might not need them, don't get me wrong, but so those are the two things that I've implemented in that, was like printing out my statements and actually figuring that out and then calling my insurance.
well, and I'll plug in real quick as a former insurance agent. You all should have an umbrella policy. Period. That's not even a question, because especially if you're putting people in your car and showing them houses, you better have a umbrella policy for of at least a minute.
And it's not that expensive.
No, they're pretty, you have to have, I think, a minimum of either 300 or 500,000 in limits on your car insurance to add the umbrella to it. So you might have to bump that up a little bit too, just to get it, but they're usually less than $100 a year to have one. And then two, all of you, especially if you have kids or people who depend on your income, should have life insurance and probably some short-term disability, because what happens if you get hit by a car on the way home today? You know, and you can't work. I'm just saying, if you can't work for the next 2-3 months, like then what? What does that look like? You've got to be able to protect your income. And yes, it costs money to do that, but it's better to have it than to not have it.
Yeah. I contacted my insurance agent, I contacted my CPA and my financial advisor, and was like, all right, so we're gonna switch some stuff up now. And then I didn't really follow through with them. So I'm intending.
We are going to hold each other accountable.
Yeah, so I did get with my CPA, we got some stuff figured out there. The insurance guy kind of just, I forgot to get back to him, he was, and then the other thing was I contacted my banker and got him to set up an HSA account. Which I had one,
Yes.
Yeah.
I had one before, but I just forgot about it and stopped using it, so health insurance is the bane of my existence. And
Do you want to elaborate a little bit?
health insurance?
HSA is.
Okay, yeah, so that, if y'all aren't familiar with what an HSA is, it's a health savings account. And so you can use that to pay, I don't know what the tax benefit is. but-
Pre-tax.
Yep, there's a tax benefit to it, one, and two, you can use that to pay your deductibles or any kind of, medical.
Or buy Advil at Walgreens.
Yep, I think they.
Massage.
Chiropractic care, yep.
There's an amount per year that you can invest.
There is
free.
It's like, I think it's like 5,000 or 9,000.
I think it's close to 10, yeah. But you can do up to that amount into that, and you can also roll over some of it each year if you don't spend it. It can just keep kind of going over.
Yeah,
So you can just like calculate your 2022, since it's January, and be like, oh, last year I spent $3,500 or, whatever it is, and then you can.
You can buy glasses or even sunglasses with it. There's a couple stipulations about the sunglasses, like they have to be like polarized or something like that, like actually protect your eyes. Although they don't technically have to be a prescription,
really?
they just have to actually provide UV protection.
No.
If you ever shop at like CVS
So-
or something, there'll be an F next to anything that qualifies, a little F letter.
Yeah.
And so you can use that as a,
Amazon.
Yeah.
yeah, as a good example for to know what qualifies and what doesn't. Yeah.
I need to fund that now, but yeah, so I did that, and then, I don't think anything else that I can think of, but yeah. Talked to all my people, and the one thing that I, just kind of go backwards for a second, having a board of directors for your own life, I thought was super interesting. Because it's basically like mentors in different spaces, right? So that's something that I'm working on this year, is trying to find my board of directors that can help with all of it.
So for me, the first thing that I did was just reevaluate my budget. And then second, started to think differently about some of the, like, my plan, and from a partnership standpoint. And started two businesses and then continue to look for the two partners that can drive those businesses. So that was the big, like, execute on the wealth plan was really what I did. How's that sound?
Okay, well, so going from there, how are you adapting your personal life and your new knowledge? And then I guess I'll follow this up because Trad again said it. How would you differentiate a board of directors for your business versus a board of directors for your personal life?
Was that one of the questions?
No, I just
Okay,
added it.
I would make sure. I wasn't trying
I like
to steal your
keeping you
thunder.
on your toes.
I like it.
I'm glad y'all read the questions, because I didn't.
I skimmed them.
Am I talking to your junkie?
What was the initial question?
How are you adapting your personal life based on what you learned?
It was like business versus personal.
Yeah, so for me, had a conversation with my wife about our spending.
How did that go?
Surprisingly well.
Yeah.
We both, I'm not gonna put her under the bus, because we both spend on frivolous shit that we don't need. But we had a couple credit card bills last year that were substantially higher than they normally are, and I'm just like, this can't be a trend, we gotta curb this. And so talking about the wealth building, so I was like, hey, yes, we can build this wealth, but why don't we take the money that we're spending on coffees and Monster energy drinks and whatever the hell else, and funnel that into some form of investment. And let's look at what we're spending on, and then we'll figure out, hey, we could put 10 grand a year, but whatever it is into those vehicles. And so we haven't had like the down and dirty getting through all the stuff, but it was just more of an overarching conversation. So, but she's receptive, so that's,
For me, it's really been way more personal, I think, even than business. Really focusing on where I'm spending my money. And again, like that comes back to, I inherited a dad that's older and hasn't paid a bill in 42 years by himself. And so I've had to take that on for him. And so that has forced me to track his money and where it's going. And then in turn, I'm like, I need to He does some of my own shit, like I'm talking to him about what he can and can't spend and am I following that?
I say how I do that.
And so that has been the big shift for me, is like, and we've heard it a thousand times, like follow your money, pay attention to your money, like red light, green light, all that stuff. And yet somehow it just doesn't always correlate. But that's one of the things that has really stuck with me the last couple of weeks. Like I can literally tell you to the penny what I've been spending money on.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of scary.
Yeah, I don't know.
For me, I just went, I went to the budget, and then found where the world was getting in front of me to make me spend money, which was a lot of places. And then, this wasn't from the content, but it was from a really awesome guy that I met down there. And he talked about meds was a way that he started to live his life, and it was exercise, sleep, diet, and meditation. So I started to think about that, and I journal. This thing goes with me everywhere, and I constantly journal, or write my thoughts in it. And I started to kind of like look at my calendar and make sure that those 4 things are a part of my daily routine in some way, shape, or form.
Who was
John Mark, whatever it is. Yeah.
What is S?
Sleep. Yeah, and it was in that order: exercise, sleep, diet, and meditation. Meditation can really be whatever you want it to be. It's just a place where your mind goes away, like where your mind can clear. Yeah.
I feel like all of it is like interconnected, because like all of the money I receive is basically fully because of my business. And I think like one of the things that, and this was from a book that I read too, that just made me think about is, it really reinforced it, is like pay for it first before you go and buy it. So basically you're funding it first. So one of the, I want to redo my kitchen, so I'm gonna like make the money first before I go and like spend it. And it's kind of funny, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna make the money because, you know, because I'm gonna do my job, but actually if I can make additional money. So if my kitchen, you know, if something was gonna cost, you know, 10K, like go and generate 10K instead of just saving that 10K, go and generate that 10K. So it's, I guess, like about being more proactive towards like some of the goals and like ways that I can do that. So, and this goes back to like business, but one of the things Hannah and I are gonna start to do more is we're going to be more intentional with some of our investment strategies, because we've had one this year so far. And so we're gonna start to double down on that, because that will help both she and I achieve our personal and professional goals faster. So we're gonna be more intentional about our investing side.
Yeah, to that point, I think they made a comment, like somebody was talking about wanting a new car, so they would find an asset that cash flowed to
Yeah.
pay for the car.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an awesome concept, like,
It was Bronco.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's what it was. What do I want in life, and then what asset is gonna create the cash flow necessary for me to have that thing?
And maybe it needs to be more than one cash flow.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like maybe your goal is $20,000, so like go grab 2 tents, you know, like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes we think about things so finite, but
Yeah.
it's like, you know, you can put that shit together.
I think the other thing too, that was kind of interesting for me is, having a reserve for not only yourself personally, but also for your business, and with the shifting market and not knowing, I mean, anything can happen at any time. But having at least a 6-month reserve of cash for all your must-have expenses, not your coffees, not your Monster Energies, but your bills. And I was like, oh, okay, so what's that look like? It's a high number.
I will say that's a Dave Ramsey
I was
principle
gonna
that I
say,
follow,
Dave
that,
Ramsey.
that's
Yes.
Dave Ramsey principle
Yeah.
that I follow, and it's more whenever you
I
have
was thinking-
inconsistent income like we do, so like, the
Minimum
goal
of
would
6
be to have
months.
minimum 6 months.
Yeah, and it, you know, I always had that kind of, I mean, the way I,
Right, but you weren't like cognizant.
yeah, well, and the way I set it up is I have all those different accounts, and then we kind of thought about, but I've got like 12 different bank accounts. So like my personal accounts have investment, home account, fun account, retirement, real estate, whatever. So in all of those accounts, I can pull that nut that I need to cover, but I want it all in the house account. So what I'm doing now is shifting everything from anything personal is all going to that house account until I hit that 6-month number.
And that's a reference to Profit First, if you haven't
Yeah,
read
yeah.
that book. That's where creating all those separate like
Buckets.
pools, buckets of money, that's Profit First.
Profit first.
Highly
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
very, very good book.
especially from a tax perspective with your business. Like setting up a separate tax account so that when it comes time to pay taxes, you just write a check.
You guys all have teams, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I think
Not exactly.
So if you do, I think it is very important for us to pass this on to our team members.
Great.
Because, when people are in teams, sometimes they don't
Mhm.
follow these things, and I think it's part of our role to,
To pay it forward.
introduce them to the concepts and because, especially if you're young, I mean, you can start by investing minimum amounts and have that compounded, so that's
Can you
what.
imagine the lives?
All
you
that
could
great
change by
like me,
paying it
you have
forward?
something,
Yeah.
Yeah,
The other thing for me too, around exactly that was for my kids, like you can pay your kids X amount of dollars tax-free, and then they can then turn that into a Roth IRA for themselves, I'll make it involved. But so they're already starting out, and I can't remember, they ran the projection of like, hey, if you put 5,000 in for like 2 to 5 years, and then they just put in 500 every year or every month. I can't remember what it was, but there's
I
some
think it was
number.
every year. It wasn't that.
It wasn't that much.
And then we have $1 million by the time we're like, they can.
Yeah, so it's stuff like that that I wanna definitely help team members, other agents with, and then also the kids, so.
Well, and on that same token, we underestimate the compound interest effect of money. And it's that true like hockey stick curve where it's slow at first, but then it just explodes, and you can start at the age of 40 and just invest $1,000 a month, or I'm sorry, $1,200, $100 a month into an investment account. And by the time you're 80, you can have $1 million just with $100 a month. Like it doesn't take that much money, more about the time that you're doing it than anything. So that's just one thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, they said there's 3 pillars to build wealth, and that it needs to be uninterrupted, passive, and then compound returns. So uninterrupted, passive, and then compound returns.
Did they happen to give any like concrete advice for this savings 6 months versus investing? Cause I'm the kind of scared to spend money person that has just been, it's my 6th year in real estate and I just hoard all my money in fear. And that like.
I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna save that amount, anything over that amount, I'm allowing myself to invest it, which that's the new mindset shift, where like I literally have like a bank account that's got money in it, but I already have my savings. So that I'm good for my 6 months or whatever, and so I have extra, and so I'm gonna dip my toe into some of these other
Is it in the
opportunities.
high yield savings
Yes.
account? Is it, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you can put it in the short-term space and play in those T-bills.
T-bill.
So, I'm gonna do a whole class on that, so we'll do a whole wealth building on down next, I think.
But I think that's also super important, both on the business side, to understand what your actual budget is. Like, how much do I actually need to have saved up?
Yeah.
What is that threshold? Is that 65,000 or is it 140,000?
Personal one and a business one, so I have like the savings for both, cause.
Yeah,
Compound interest is massively powerful. Like if you want, you could put $1.4 million into an account at 7%, and in 100 years, it's $1 billion. So it's like, sure, it's 100 years, I get it, and it's 1.4 million, I get it. That's the great and grand, but I think when we are able to start to think how that's just 1.4 million sitting there for 100 years in a trust. All of a sudden, you've created a legacy by creating maybe 2 or 3 or 10 cash flows. That's $1.4 million of cash flows, and like the legacy that is created from that in $1 billion, ain't nobody in your family have to go hungry.
And that's like an
And
80%.
all it is it's a 7% return over 100 years, and it's just locked up in an index fund that nobody will touch.
yeah.
And like, it's a simple concept, and it really hockey stick curves after like 20 years.
Just make sure you have some things in place so that they just don't get the money at 18.
Correct.
Yeah.
That would have been good for me.
All right, So we're gonna start winding down, but I would like to, can I shout you guys out? You don't have to say anything unless you'd like, but we do have some special guests. We're also with KW Wealth Event in Austin, and so do you guys have any takeaways that you'd like to share with us? We would
Oh,
love to
gosh,
hear
you know,
your
it's really
perspective.
great to see you guys again. And
Thank you guys for coming.
I wish I prepared a response to that question because I did, we both, my husband and I left the event really jazzed up and I was like ready to spring into action and I did. We already are somewhat on our way to what we're building. We've over the years pivoted into multifamily properties. When we moved here down here from Boston. My name is Garrett, by the way. I started getting into flipping properties and building my first house to sell right now. But I'm kind of plateauing and he gave us so many ideas about tax avoidance strategies. We were on the phone with our accountant the next day. Places like the health savings account, places to shelter your money. And also I think the exercise, which I think Ian particularly scoffed at first, to project out over 30 years a $50 billion wealth building plan, just seemed impossible. It's like, come on, I'm not looking to build $50 million. I'd be happy with $5 million. Like to do the exercise. And just as you were saying, Jay, the compounding effect is really what the secret is there. Because you've got that time frame, which alas we don't on this page. You know, you don't need to make huge actions today for it to build really great returns in the future. And I just took all our, if you haven't gone over all this already, take all your assets and your liabilities, put them in the spreadsheet, and then start projecting that out, paying down your debt, increasing your assets through, you know, very strategic acquisitions. Let's say your first rental apartment or something like that, and then you're paying down your mortgage, but your equity is increasing, and you're getting the passive income. So I'm like, it really felt empowering to recognize that it's within our power to make this happen if we really have our eyes focused on our numbers. You know, I think bookkeeping is really, really important. And this is coming from somebody, full disclosure, who was a KW MCA for 5 years. I might be coming back into the board. I want to talk to the team leader here.
That would be that guy.
Oh, okay. About that. But keeping an eye on your money is really important. I remember seeing Gary at a family reunion one year. And he said
every month he looks at his net worth. That's what his focus is. And as I say, what you focus on expands. And that's what I do. I'm money minded, so we're constantly doing our accounts. But I'm always focusing on the bottom line. It's like, okay, yeah, we went over budget this month, but our net worth is higher this month than it was last month. And that's more important to me. I don't want to be in a cash flow crunch, but sure, you know, just keep building it over time. So yeah, I mean, it was brilliant. I signed up immediately for the wealth, what's it called?
Community.
Wealth community, right? And I was actually just on the phone with oh gosh, what's her name? Gabby, yesterday, because they want to kick me out because I'm not part of KW. Small things like we're all empowered to do that. And you know, one of the things I most loved about being an MCA was being with agents, because agents are such a diverse lot. They're fun people to be around, and they're just, I think they help other people empower other people to realize their goals, and sometimes they fail to realize that they're empowered to realize their own goals. They've got all the skills and the experience and the social skills to get what they want, you know. But agents are scattered and people pleasers, and they sometimes really need to have structure. You really know it, don't you? It's like I'm gonna stop and say you're all capable of doing this. You know, I was fired from my job as the MCA. I was a friggin' awesome MCA, but I'm kind of hot-headed, and so was my OP, and we sort of boom. It's like, but it was really good because like I'm pivoting into rental real estate. And that was 8-9 years ago, and our little investment over there had
grown, the equity in our investments that started on that day have grown $1.7 million. So for equity. Not you know, so you're all empowered to reach these goals, so.
Wow. So, in other like, everybody who knows how to do this stuff.
Very perfect. The real trick with all of this, that turning point, we've been thinking about it, we didn't do it. With, especially with property, because it's for the long haul, you really just, you gotta start sooner rather than later, and every little bit that you do at the start grows much more quickly than you think.
And you know, we didn't have the money, so we took distributions out on from our IRAs and paid the penalty.
Yeah.
Whatever that was, it was probably
Well,
$7,000, I think. It was
Now I realize there are
$7,000,
ways not.
but look what we turned it into.
Yeah, it's worth the risk if you know how to do it, yeah.
And there are ways to avoid, to leverage money that you might already have saved without incurring penalties, other than waiting till you're 59.5. And it's, you know, talk to your accountant or find a better one.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
what you find his tax strategist, when they said, if y'all have a tax strategist, they're like, I want somebody to actually like tell me what to do, not just file my shit, you know what I mean? Like, tell me what to do, I'll do it.
And that's probably more likely a tax attorney than it is a CPA.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
he said tax strategist, I was like,
Yeah.
I literally like Googled like Charleston tax strategist. Oh my God.
And it's, I mean, you'll know the right person when you find it, I think.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting. I mean, I didn't think I would end up in property on some level, but I'm really glad I did.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
It's the best business to be in for the average person, you know, to build wealth.
Develop it.
You know,
I forget the statistic, but it's somewhere around about 90% of the world's millionaires did so by investing in real estate.
Right.
I mean, the press cover all the Silicon Valley, whatever, who came up with an idea and did this, did that. I know that, you know, I know a bunch of those people, that's fine. And some of them are really good at it, but again, you look at the vast number of people that are wealthy, they either did it from something like paper bags.
Yeah, like the pool noodle.
Yeah. They did something cool that made them a ton of money, you know?
Bedrock.
Yeah, most
But
people.
those are the ones that get the press, but they're not the bulk of people who are actually wealthy. You know, because.
Well, if you guys, I wanna honor everybody's time. If anybody has any other questions, we're gonna probably like stay back for a few minutes and chat, but thank you guys so much for coming to Wealth Building Wednesday. We will announce next month, it will be in West Ashley Market Center.
I will plug really quick.
Okay, go for it.
KWYP is hosting during our chapter meeting in February, it was on the 14th. We have a financial coach that will be there. So it's February 14th. It'll be in Mount Pleasant. Just keep your eyes out for that.
Thank you, guys.
I was just gonna tell you that the bigger pockets, you know, those guys, they have a state by state resource on their website for tax attorneys.
Oh,
And
okay.
so